You know why you're here. You know who I am. Let's get into takeaway number one. Big takeaway from this week is that the Colts running back room was all Jonathan Taylor for the first time. Taylor had 23 carries, 69 yards, touchdown, and a catch for 6. But most importantly, 88% snap share. Just 16% for Zack Moss, who only had 1 carry for 2 yards. There is no more committee. I'm fully comfortable with Jonathan Taylor as, a top 5 dynasty running back. Workload's there. And he is a solid RB1 every single week, even with Gardner Minshew running this meh Colts offense. But it was finally nice to see a full workload this week. Takeaway number 2. The Texans offense is on fire. I don't know how they had all of this production this week, but literally every single player hit. CJ Stroud had 356 yards, a passing touchdown, and a rushing touchdown. Devin Singletary contributed 150 rushing yards and a touchdown. And then all of the receiving weapons were good. Tank Dell had 6 for 56 and 1 on 14 targets, which is insane. Noah Brown somehow had 7 for 172 in his second career game in a row. He had 150 yards last week, so that's kind of crazy. And then Dalton Schultz got you 4 for 71 on his 6 targets. So it's interesting. All of this greatness happened with no Nico Collins last week, and with Collins playing a bit part role last week. Can you imagine what happens when Nico Collins comes back? And then can you imagine what happens if the Texans acquire someone like T. Higgins as their wide receiver 1? And have Higgins as the 1 and then Collins and Dell behind him. I mean, this is one of the best offenses in the league in that case. CJ Stroud, right now I have him at Dynasty quarterback 6, just behind Justin Herbert. I could see him being 5 if you wanted. I still have Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, and Burrow ahead of Stroud. Rest of season, CJ Stroud every week is a must play. Tank Dell, you're going to get 14 targets. He's a must play. And then we're going to see, I think the most interesting thing is when Nico Collins comes back. Because Noah Brown played as the wide receiver 2. Robert Woods is the wide receiver 3. But when Collins comes back, does he go back to being the 1? Is it Dell? Where does Dalton Schultz fit in? I know CJ Stroud is going to deliver. I think it's just going to be a question of his weapons and how they deliver. Is Dameon Pierce going to get back on the field after missing this week and ceding 30 carries to Devin Singletary? So we're just going to have to decide which Texans weapons to play. But this is an offense we want to target in fantasy football. Now, speaking of a quarterback that I moved behind CJ Stroud in dynasty rankings, we got to talk about Trevor Lawrence. He looked bad. And I know it was against the 49ers, but he had 17 for 29, 185 yards, took 5 sacks, threw 2 picks. It just wasn't there. All the receivers outside of Christian Kirk did poorly. Kirk had 104 yards, so over half of Lawrence's yardage. 6 receptions on 11 targets. Calvin Ridley, 2 for 20. He's fading. Evan Ingram, 4 for 12 on 7 targets. He's a tight end, so he'll always be kind of playable, but not a good week this week. Lawrence crushed the offense. And I think it's fair to wonder a couple of things. One, for fantasy football, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a high-end starter this year. I think we can say that. He's not a top 5 weekly quarterback on any week. Even in the best matchup, he's not top 5 on any week. But, he's probably still a low-end quarterback 1 rest of season, borderline. The real question, I think, is long-term for Trevor Lawrence. Is he more of what I'll call a regular franchise quarterback? He's not bad. He's good. He's a good player. He's been good this year. But is he more regular? More of Dak Prescott was pretty good today. But more of a Kirk Cousins than a Joe Burrow. That's my question. So I've ranked CJ Stroud ahead of him in Dynasty. I think you have to at this stage. I have Trevor Lawrence right now at quarterback 8, behind Lamar Jackson, just ahead of Tua and Kyler Murray and Anthony Richardson, but he's in the same tier as those guys. If Kyler Murray comes on strong, I'll rank him above Trevor Lawrence in Dynasty. I don't have any problem doing that. And then we'll see about Anthony Richardson next year, how Tua plays the rest of the year. But he's not in that top tier anymore. He's kind of falling down a little bit. And it's hurting his weapons, especially Calvin Ridley. Now, speaking of a quarterback who looked great, when did Joshua Dobbs become a star? I mean, he had 23 for 34, 268, and a touchdown. And then he also had 8 for 44 and 1 on the ground to fill the void left by Alexander Mattison and his concussion this week. And all of the Vikings weapons were pretty good. TJ Hawkinson in his limited role, so limited that he had 15 targets, caught 11 of them, 134 yards and a touchdown. He did just play 63% of snaps, so I guess he was limited in that way. Whatever. But Jordan Addison, 4 for 69 on 7 targets. And then, Brandon Powell and Jalen Naylor mixed in. But Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne missed this week. I expect both of them to be back soon, probably next week, given how they were talking about it. As you know, targets are earned in fantasy football, but there is a level of someone who is so elite that they hurt everyone else. And Justin Jefferson undeniably is in that group. Undeniably. He's one of the best receivers in the league. So he's so elite that he's going to come back. And I have concerns about TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison. That Jordan Addison is going to be more of a flyer wide receiver 3, and TJ Hawkinson is going to be more of a regular top 5 tight end instead of this performance. This is just not possible. Joshua Dobbs is playing well, but he runs. He doesn't throw as much as Kirk Cousins. He's not as good of a passer as Kirk Cousins, and the rushing takes away from the receiving weapon. So while Joshua Dobbs is a low-end quarterback 1 if he plays like this, that doesn't mean that his receiving weapons are going to be as strong as they were under Kirk Cousins. I think it's going to fall between TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison most weeks, a little bit like the Eagles offense, where A.J. Brown always eats, and then the other two, Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, are kind of up and down. I think it's an even worse version of that because Justin Jefferson is better than A.J. Brown, and Jordan Addison's not as good as Devonta Smith yet, and TJ Hawkinson's a little bit better, so they're more than Dallas Goedert. So they're more kind of both mixing in instead of it mostly being Devonta Smith. So we'll see about the Vikings offense, but I don't know. Could Joshua Dobbs be the 2024 starter? They're 6-4. I think he has a possibility. We'll see. Kirk Cousins is a free agent, so it's going to be an exciting situation to watch for Dynasty. But for now, just enjoy the ride with Joshua Dobbs. Last takeaway. Jahmyr Gibbs is the Lions RB1, but both running backs excelled. Gibbs took over the lead role, and I think it's going to stay this way. He had more carries, 14 carries to Montgomery's 12, 58% snap share to Montgomery's 38%. And Gibbs also scored 2 touchdowns and was the only running back involved in the passing game. Montgomery didn't see a target. But because of a 75-yard run from Montgomery, he had 12 for 116 and 1, so he was also great. Both are great. I think from now on, I'll rank Gibbs higher, probably in the low-end RB1 range, and Montgomery will be a mid to high-end RB2. But it's easily possible. Right now, they're both RB1s on the season. If you like these takeaways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Subscribe to the channel. And additionally, we're going to get into a few Patreon questions. There weren't that many this week. But if you want to ask questions, patreon.com/fantasy advice. The link is at the top right corner of the video. And only patrons get to ask these advanced questions for the YouTube. So we'll jump into them right now. What should we do with Saquon Barkley as a contender in Dynasty? It feels like he's an easy sell with a QB situation and bad playoff schedule. But what would a realistic tear down target be that is good enough to still compete for a title? Well, honestly, I think with Saquon as a contender, he's still going to get the volume. I don't think you're going to get anything back for him because he's not under contract. He's already 26, turns 27 in February. I think he's just a hold. I think he's a hold. As a contender, what are you going to get that's going to give you more production? I think you hold him and you just have to deal with it. Next question. Is it time to start looking at Trey McBride as the top 5 Dynasty tight end? Well, as we know, I almost put him on here, but I just felt like Kyler Murray was almost as much of a storyline there. So Trey McBride had 8 for 131 on 9 targets. He was great. He was the number 1 target in the offense. Top 5. I don't have him there yet, but I'm fine putting him at 7. Still below Laporta, Andrews, Kincaid, Pitts, Hawkinson, and Kelsey. But if he were top 5 in a couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised. Last one. What's Cade Otton's value? Kind of fell back to earth this week. Didn't do much in their game against the Titans. I don't know. 2 for 10 on 3 targets. He's the kind of player, it's like a streamer. I don't see Cade Otton really ever breaking through. I really don't know if I would give a second for Cade Otton. You know, late second, maybe. More of an early third. It's just the kind of player you can find tight ends like this. I mean, Tyler Conklin is that. And Tyler Conklin is not worth anything. So, yeah. I'm probably not giving any second for Cade Otton. I appreciate all the patrons for asking those questions. Remember, you can sign up at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. And the link is in the top right corner and also in the show description at the bottom. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all tomorrow for my main show, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, where we'll do a full breakdown of the week's actions. But until next time, I will see you all later. Peace out.